So in terms of the insecure attachment, I find that this one is probably like one of the easiest ones to understand because it's relatively straightforward. A little bit more complicated becomes the insecure attachment, preoccupied attachment. So that's here. So on the top part of the circle, where the role of the child's now wanting to explore, and our job there is to watch over them, delight in them, help them, and enjoy with them. But let's say that for whatever reason, we had the kind of experiences where we feel like the world is too dangerous, or our child is too precious, or I need you to need me. So I was trying to think, because I've been thinking a lot about this preoccupied attachment and what does it mean, and what would be the circumstances, like say a parent within the child protection system, where would we see this? And so it would probably a lot in the I need you to need me kind of feelings from the parent, in the sense that, let's say that it's a mom who herself was abused as a kid, and so she really wants to do better with her own child. And so she's very dedicated to that, and she's promised herself not to do that. But parenting is incredibly triggering if you've been abused and haven't resolved that, because it's going to evoke all of those feelings for you, because you see the vulnerability of your own child and you start recognizing, I was that vulnerable too. So then if you haven't dealt with your own trauma issues, then you may start over focusing on the needs of the child so that you don't have to deal with your own emotions. So you might send off this message like, I need you to need me so I don't have to feel what's going on for me. That might be a fairly common sort of internal scenario that we might see in the parents that we work with. And so you end up with this situation where the parent is not wanting the child to go out to explore. They're wanting the child close. And here becomes a little bit of a sort of so you end up with this kind of push-pull relationship. And I'll talk a little bit about that, because there's an interesting dynamic here. So the parent needs the child to be close. But if the child was close and got their emotional cup filled, so if they were actually able to receive the nourishment from the parent or the caregiver, then they would go out to explore. So it becomes important for the child to be close, but not get their emotional needs met. So that's why we see these kinds of kids where they will, so when they're young, they might ask to be comforted, and then they ask to be put down before they're soothed, and then they ask to be comforted again. Or when they're a little bit older, they want to spend time with you, but then when you do spend time with them, they don't actually seem to want to be with you. Or they're all the time creating chaos, so that as they get into the teenage years, so that, but your interventions doesn't calm their chaos. It just, the chaos keeps remaining, and they keep staying close to you, and you keep being involved in that chaos without it resolving. Because that's kind of like the key, the linchpin kind of problem here, is that their emotional cup cannot get filled, because if it were to get filled, then they would go out to explore, and they cannot go out to explore because that's what the caregiver can't tolerate. Does that make sense? I see there might be a question there about that.
Yeah, let me add one thing maybe before, another question before we go to that one.
Yeah.
So, or just the point that
yeah.
attachment is so much that dance, that interaction
right.
between the child and the parent, and that the child is, as an infant, as a toddler, they're reading off their parent because they want the parent to be comfortable and not upset, right? And so the child's
right.
reading off them and responding to what the parent is able to offer.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's because the need to belong is so central, that we will kind of turn ourselves into whatever pretzel we need to do to be able to be as connected to our parents as they can tolerate, as our parent can tolerate. And so that's kind of where that attachment dance is. Yeah.
And so with so much of this falling on the